Paul, thank you for sitting down and talking with us. Can you start by telling us a little bit about your life and your relationship with Africa?
Well, I started as a little kid seeing the movies with Stuart Granger and so on, and it caught my imagination. But the real thing that got me going with Africa was when I was in India and I was dealing with the Maharajas buying their guns and seeing all these big caliber rifles, and it inspired me to sort of take one to Africa and try it. And then a lot of the professional hunters were coming into the shop to buy these guns that I was getting from India, and they started telling me about Africa. We're talking about 1969, 70, and eventually Luke Samaras persuaded me to come out. And once you've experienced the African hunting or safari or photographic type of expedition, you're hooked. You know, you always want to get back as soon as you can. In my case, it was as soon as I could get enough money together to do it again. But I was really hooked, and being a gun maker and being involved with heavy caliber rifles, the whole romance of Africa in the old days, and we're going back 50 years when climates were a little different as far as hunting was concerned. And Africa, of course, was a lot cheaper to be able to hunt in or travel or do. You know, I did quite a lot of photography in those days as well, which I'd come back to England and say, look at this picture, and we'd go, oh wow. Today, of course, they just pull out their camera and say, I got all that, you know. But no, it was very exciting from somebody who had grown up in North London, you know, to sort of start experiencing the wild and places where there was no human contact or sign of civilization, which was very different from post-war London.
And so in 50 years you've been coming to Africa on safari approximately. How do you feel about conservation and how important it is to this place?
Well, originally when you come to Africa, I think myself and most people, they want to shoot animals and stuff them and stick them on the wall. And then gradually over the years you realise that that's not what it's all about. Africa is a different continent, and the wildlife of Africa is a treasure not to be wasted. And you know, my last half a dozen safaris, you could count on one hand easily the amount of animals I've shot in half a dozen trips. But I just love to be out here and see the wildlife and be in an area where you're not pressured by civilization and don't have too many aeroplanes flying over your head all day. And I think that you get to a stage, and most hunters of my age get to the stage that they're not interested in shooting animals anymore, but they can't resist coming out to Africa to sort of flavor the atmosphere and as we're doing today, looking at the conservation projects that are going on in Africa today. And I'm very supportive of people who are trying to maintain the wildlife in a reasonable quantity in an area where they can reproduce successfully. And this particular project we're involved in at the moment shows how success can be achieved if you've got the will to do it.
Thank you, Paul. And as a long-term friend and lifelong friend of Robin and Pauline, what does it mean to you to be here and to see their Rhino project?
Well, I think the Rhino project that Robin has, and his wife Pauline, who's very involved in it as well, have been successful in doing, just shows how a one-time full bore professional hunter can actually get involved in conservation. And what they've done here is miraculous. You know, these rhino are heavily persecuted by poachers, and they've not lost one yet in all the years they've had them here. And as you've seen, the rhino here are not just tame cows sitting in a pen. I mean, these rhino are free, and if you get too close to one or two of them, they're still proper wild animals, and it's lovely to see. And the success that they've had in breeding has been amazing. You know, in the years I've been coming here, the herds developed from 3 or 4 to 6 or 7 to 8 or 9, and now I think we're at 12 or 13, all with internal breeding. I mean, Maddox we saw yesterday was bred here, and he's a big rhino now.
Absolutely. And last question, Paul. As someone who has, you know, loved Africa as much as you have for as long as you have, what would your message be to the next generation of hunters, of conservationists, of nature lovers about this place?
Well, the message really is that all hunting must be done on an ethical basis. If anybody is interested in hunting, and a lot of younger people are, they must always realise that whatever they do must be on a fair chase ethical basis, and that will help the continuity of hunting, which is the major conservation tool for African wild animals. If you step off the legal line, or you do things that are unethical or exceed the sort of numbers of animals that should be taken, that is the Achilles heel that must be avoided at all costs. And I think that there's good hunting to be done in a manner that doesn't affect the volume of game, and in fact can improve it if you do it correctly. I mean, in areas where there's too many lions, they're killing the other animals, you've got to get a balance, and so hunting can be part of that system. And of course finance to keep these vast areas going and successful. You need staff and you need financial support, which hunting and photography can supply.
Thank you, Paul.